Think North Carolina is all beaches and barbecue? Look closer. Between its misty hills, winding rivers, and storybook towns lies a beauty most people never see. In this video, we're uncovering the most beautiful and affordable places to live in North Carolina, where timeless southern charm meets everyday peace. Number 10. New Bern. What do bears, Pepsi, and colonial governors have in common? Somehow, all roads lead to New Bern, a riverside town where history grins back at you and the streets hum with personality. Tucked where the Neuse and Trent rivers meet, this town of just over 34,000 people might be North Carolina's most delightful contradiction. Elegant but playful, polished but still a little wild. Founded in 1710 by Swiss settlers, New Bern has had centuries to refine its charm, and it shows. Red brick streets wind past pastel storefronts and Georgian mansions, while the Riverwalk glows honey gold at sunset. Once the state's colonial capital, it still wears its heritage proudly at Tryon Place, the 18th century governor's mansion that overlooks the water like something out of a period film. Step inside, and the air smells faintly of magnolia and history, as if time itself learned to move slower here. But New Bern's not stuck in the past. It's in on the joke. Case in point, the bears. Dozens of life-sized, hand-painted fiberglass bears stand guard across town. One in a tuxedo, one in a pirate hat, another splashed in tie-dye like it's running late for a festival. They're not random mascots. They're a wink to the town's namesake, Bern, Switzerland, whose emblem is, you guessed it, a bear. Locals turn that into a scavenger hunt. You'll find families and couples wandering the streets with coffee in hand, spotting bears the way kids spot shooting stars. And while the bears might steal the spotlight, it's the lifestyle that makes people stay. It's easy to fall for the beauty, but easier still to stay for the balance. Homes hover between $280,000 and $350,000, with historic or waterfront houses stretching higher. Rent usually lands between $1,300 and $1,700, and nothing here feels rushed or unreachable. Then there's the fizz of pride that never quite goes flat. Pepsi Cola was born here in 1898, and you can still sip one at the original soda fountain downtown. Somewhere between the sweetness of that first sip, the glint of sunset on the Neuse, and a bear statue winking from a nearby corner, New Bern wasn't built to impress you. It was brewed to make you smile. Number 9. Marion. If the mountains had a front porch, it would probably look a lot like Marion. Framed by the Blue Ridge Parkway and Lake James, this Western Carolina town sits where adventure and comfort meet halfway. Locals like to say Marion is where Main Street meets the mountains. And that's not just a slogan, it's a feeling. With a little over 7,500 residents, it moves at the rhythm of a banjo string. Easy, steady, never rushed. Main Street keeps its brick sidewalks and antique lamps, but the conversations sound modern. People laughing outside cafes, shop doors chiming open, and somewhere in the distance, a train whistle drifting through the hills. The old Marion Depot still stands proud, reborn from a 19th century train station into a cheerful event hall where the past doesn't linger, it mingles. Just up the road, the Carson House tells stories from the 1700s, when stagecoaches stopped for rest and revolution was still a whisper. But Marion's not just another postcard town. It has a fun streak of weird. Every May, this quiet mountain spot goes wild for the WNC Bigfoot Festival, a full-on celebration of local legend and good humor. You'll find Bigfoot-shaped cookies, t-shirts, and sighting zones near the Catawba River. People come for the myth, but stay for the laughter, and maybe a photo with a 10-foot-tall hairy mascot. Down by that same river, the Joseph McDowell Greenway curls through trees and sunlight, offering fishing piers, bike paths, and that rare kind of peace you can't stream or scroll through. So, is it expensive to live here? Well, you might be surprised for its affordability. Homes hover between $220,000 and $320,000, and rent usually sits around $1,200 to $1,400 a month. At a diner breakfast, pancakes bigger than the plate, coffee that could power a pickup, and you'll start to wonder why anyone ever leaves. Number 8. Greenville. If college towns threw block parties, Greenville would be the one with barbecue smoke in the air, live bands on every corner, and paddleboards gliding down the Tar River under strings of cafe lights. With around 95,000 people, Greenville is big enough to have its own uptown, yet small enough that your barista still remembers your order. At the center of it all is East Carolina University, the town's creative pulse. When the Pirates play, the whole city turns purple and gold. But beyond game days, Greenville keeps its own easy rhythm. The South Tar River Greenway ties the city together, a ribbon of trees and sunlight that winds from downtown to quiet neighborhoods. Locals jog it in the morning, families bike it at dusk, and somewhere along the way, you'll hear the soft rush of the water keeping time. A little farther north, River Park stretches across 324 acres of open air and calm. Fishing piers, kayak launches, picnic tables under tall oaks. It's one of those rare spots where you can go from city chatter to nature silence in a single breath. And then there's Uptown itself, bright, buzzy, and just the right amount of artsy. The Greenville Museum of Art anchors the scene with local masterpieces, while pop-up markets spill color onto the sidewalks. Walk a few steps down Evans Street, and the air changes. You catch that slow, smoky perfume from Sam Jones Barbecue, where every plate feels half tradition, half celebration. So, what's it like to actually live where the energy never quits? Surprisingly easy. Homes hover between $200,000 and $280,000, and rent usually falls around $1,100 to $1,500 a month. That leaves plenty of room for weekend adventures, craft beers at Uptown Brewing, and a round of mini golf at Captain Jack's, or a lazy paddle down the Tar, while the sky turns Carolina blue. Number 7. Sunset Beach. Every evening, Sunset Beach keeps its promise. The sky catches fire, the tide glows gold, and even the seagulls seem to pause for the view. It's the kind of coastal town that doesn't need to raise its voice. One look, and you already understand why people fall quiet here. Perched at the southern edge of North Carolina's coast, Sunset Beach is part mainland, part barrier island, that rare balance of easy to reach and feels miles away. With just about 4,500 people, it's the smallest town on this list, but it lives larger than most. For more than 50 years, the only way to reach the island was the old Sunset Beach pontoon bridge, a floating swing bridge that opened once an hour for passing boats. Cars would line up, radios playing, families leaning out their windows to breathe the salt air, and nobody minded the wait. When the new fixed bridge arrived in 2010, the old pontoon was lovingly preserved as a museum piece, a gentle reminder of slower days when time and tide kept the same rhythm. And then there's the town's secret heart, the Kindred Spirit mailbox, hidden among the dunes of Bird Island. Inside that weathered tin box are thousands of handwritten letters, confessions, thank yous, heartbreaks, and small hopes from strangers who stopped to write. Wander farther and you'll reach Bird Island Reserve, a wild stretch of sand and seabirds where the world feels stripped back to sky, wind, and tide. Yet for a view this beautiful, the cost of living is surprisingly low. Homes hover between $400,000 and $600,000, while two-bedroom rentals run from $1,500 to $2,000, especially inland. Even here, life stays grounded. The island may shine, but the prices don't pretend. Number 6. Hickory. If you mixed a craftsman's workshop with a lake house postcard, you'd get Hickory, a town that smells faintly of sawdust, barbecue smoke, and summer afternoons by the water. Tucked in the foothills of western North Carolina, this city of about 45,000 people has the heart of a small town and the rhythm of a place that never forgot how to build things. It all started back in the 1850s when a single tavern stood beneath a massive hickory tree. That's where the town got its name: simple, sturdy, and rooted. From there, Hickory grew into one of the South's greatest furniture capitals. For decades, it built America's living rooms, sending tables, chairs, and cabinets far beyond the Carolina hills. That legacy still hums here. Step inside the Hickory Furniture Mart, and you'll find 4 floors of polished wood, fabric samples, and the faint echo of forklifts rolling across history. It's part showroom, part museum, all pride. But this isn't a one-note town. Drive 10 minutes north, and Lake Hickory opens up. 105 miles of sparkling shoreline that locals treat like their second living room. Weekends stretch out across the water, boats drifting past coves, kids jumping off docks, and lunch breaks that last a little longer at Copper Penny Grill. The lake glints against the Blue Ridge backdrop, turning even errands into postcards. And for all that beauty, Hickory doesn't come with a big city price tag. Homes tend to fall between $250,000 and $320,000, while rent usually sits around $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Groceries and day-to-day living stay comfortably modest. And with Charlotte and Asheville each an hour away, you get access to 2 major cities without paying for either. So what happens when a town reinvents itself without losing its soul? Downtown Hickory has the answer. The smell of varnish has been replaced by espresso and food trucks. Brick buildings that once held factories now host art shows and open-air concerts. Every summer, the Sales Original Music Series turns Union Square into a festival lawn. Folding chairs, kids dancing barefoot, and string lights swaying in the evening air. Before we move on, don't forget to hit that like button and tell us below, which North Carolina town would you call the state's hidden gem? Number 5. Kinston. Once upon a time, this town was called Kingston, until the locals decided they were done naming things after kings. They dropped the G, kept the pride, and never looked back. That tiny act of rebellion says everything about Kinston, a riverside community with a knack for reinventing itself, one story and one meal at a time. Perched along the Neuse River in eastern North Carolina, Kinston is part grit, part grace, and entirely original. About 20,000 people call it home, living with a cinematic sense of place. Old brick buildings turned into breweries, an arts center inside a former high school, and the faint scent of hickory smoke drifting from backyard cookouts. The town's seen textile booms, floods, and fires, but it always manages to rise, dust itself off, and find a new rhythm. And speaking of rhythm, have you heard of the chef and the farmer? Celebrity chef Vivian Howard's restaurant didn't just put Kinston on the map. It changed how people saw small-town dining in the South. Between her PBS show, A Chef's Life, and that farm-to-table magic, Kinston turned from quiet to buzzworthy almost overnight. Today, downtown hums with the same creative pulse. Mother Earth's brewing solar-powered taproom, cozy galleries, and musicians who'd rather play barefoot on a porch than chase fame in the city. All that creativity comes without the big city price tag. Homes here often range between $120,000 and $160,000, and rent sits comfortably around $900 to $1,100. It's the kind of place where you can actually afford to slow down, build something, or start over. And if you need a bigger city fix, Greenville, Goldsboro, and New Bern are all within easy reach. Still, history hasn't gone anywhere. It's simply learned to keep time with the present. At the CSS New Civil War Center, a salvaged Confederate ironclad whispers of the past, while just a few blocks away, the old Granger Hill Auditorium now fills with live music instead of morning bells. Number 4. Brevard. Some towns have beach shells or city skylines. Brevard has waterfalls and white squirrels. Tucked against the edge of Pigsgaw National Forest, this mountain town feels like it was designed by nature itself. Mist curling through treetops, rivers humming through the valleys, and a kind of peace that lingers long after you leave. They call it the land of waterfalls, and once you've seen even one, you'll understand why locals keep their hiking boots by the door. Home to just under 8,000 people, Brevard sits 2,100 feet above sea level, high enough for crisp mornings, fiery autumns, and summers that stay gentle and green. But here, the local celebrities aren't the people. They're the white squirrels, snow-colored versions of the eastern gray, who dart across lawns, rule the parks, and even have their own festival and mural cameos. Some say they escaped from a traveling carnival decades ago. Whether that's true or just another mountain legend, they've definitely claimed this town as theirs. And maybe that's the best thing about Brevard. Everything here, from its stories to its streets, feels personal. History hums quietly through East Main, where old craftsmen and colonial revival homes line the sidewalks. And landmarks like Silvermont Mansion still open their doors for tours, concerts, and community gatherings. But while the past lingers in wood and stone, the air itself belongs to the music. Each summer, the Brevard Music Center turns the town into a natural amphitheater. Orchestras, jazz bands, and violinists filling the night, while families picnic under a canopy of stars. And what's it like to live here? Surprisingly easy on the wallet for a place this stunning. Homes usually fall between $430,000 and $600,000, while rent stays around $900 to $2,200. And when the workday ends, your backyard becomes the adventure. The Pisgah National Forest unspools into hundreds of miles of trails, swimming holes, and the kind of cascades, Looking Glass Falls, Moore Cove Falls, that make you forget you ever owned a calendar. Weekends mean hiking, biking, or a stop at Rocky's Soda Shop, where nostalgia tastes like vanilla cream and time moves just slow enough to matter. Number 3. Rocky Mount. Imagine a town that refused to grow old, that turned smoke and steel into color, music, and the clink of pint glasses. That's Rocky Mount. Once built on cotton and tobacco, it's now a place where the past doesn't fade. It evolves. The old mill brews beer now. The warehouse hums with art. And trains still sing through downtown, a song that never ended. Sitting along the Tar River with about 54,000 residents, Rocky Mount carries both grit and glow. It began as a mill and railroad town, built on industry, powered by motion. But somewhere along the way, it learned to trade smoke for soul. Now those same brick walls that once echoed with machines pulse with music, food, and art. At the heart of that transformation sits Rocky Mount Mills, a 19th century textile complex reborn as the town's creative hub. Inside, breweries like Hopfly and Koi Pond share space with restaurants, music nights, and riverside lofts that glow like lanterns at dusk. Locals call it the heartbeat of modern Rocky Mount, and they're not wrong. And yes, people actually live in those converted mill apartments, where a normal evening might look like a walk by the river, pine on the patio, or a concert echoing through the old brick arches. So what's it like to live in a place that turned its past into a promise? Surprisingly easy. Homes here usually range between $170,000 and $210,000, while rent hovers around $1,000 to $1,200 a month. What truly draws people here is the rhythm of everyday life. The Imperial Center for the Arts and Sciences keeps that creative current flowing. A former power plant turned gallery, planetarium, and children's museum. Outside, the Tar River Greenway winds past fishing piers, parks, and ever-changing murals. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle cuts through the air. Steady, familiar, like the town's own heartbeat, keeping time. Number 2. Elizabeth City. If any town ever earned its nickname, it's Elizabeth City, the harbor of hospitality. It's not just painted on a welcome sign here, it's a way of life. Anchored along the Pasquotank River, this coastal gem feels part maritime, part storybook. Sailboats gliding past red brick storefronts, gulls circling lazily overhead like they've got permanent residency. With a population of just 19,000, it's small in size, but big in spirit. Before it was known for charm, Elizabeth City was known for blimps. Yes, actual blimps. During World War II, the Weeksville Naval Air Station built and housed some of the world's largest airships inside a wooden hangar so massive it looked like a cathedral to flight. Though the blimps are long gone, their legacy floats quietly overhead. The town remains home to one of the largest U.S. Coast Guard air stations in the nation. And that occasional hum in the sky isn't noise, it's heritage. But wander downtown and the story shifts from aviation to artistry. Old department stores have been reborn into galleries, cafes, and boutiques. At the heart of it all stands the Arts of the Albemarle, a stunning 19th century landmark turned creative hub. Inside, the McGuire Theater fills with everything from bluegrass nights to Broadway dreams. While just steps away, the Museum of the Albemarle mirrors the river it celebrates with a glass facade that catches every sunset. And the cost of calling it home? Surprisingly down to earth. Homes here usually range between $240,000 and $300,000, depending on how close you want to be to the water. And rents drift between $1,400 and $1,700. It's the kind of affordability that lets you breathe easy to trade rush hour stress for front porch evenings and a view of boats bobbing at the docks. Even better, every spring, Elizabeth City throws one of its quirkiest traditions, the North Carolina Potato Festival, a 3-day celebration of farming roots, fried spuds, and small-town joy. Parades roll through, bands fill the air, and the scent of funnel cake mingles with saltwater breezes till the whole harbor smells like nostalgia. Number 1. Tarboro. What does a town look like when time decides to linger instead of leave? Tarboro has the answer. It doesn't boast about progress. It celebrates endurance. With its church steeples, porch swings, and a 15-acre park older than most states, this river town seems to balance on the edge of 2 centuries. One foot in the 1700s, the other rocking gently on a front porch. Home to just under 11,000 people, Tarboro sits beside the Tar River, the very reason it exists. Back in the 1700s, it was a thriving river port trading tobacco and lumber long before the railroads ever whistled through. Locals still call it T-Town, a nickname that fits its rhythm. Unhurried, grounded, proud. At the town's heart lies Town Common, and calling it a park doesn't do it justice. It's an heirloom, one of the only original colonial commons left in the United States, even older than Boston's. 15 rolling acres where soldiers once drilled and farmers grazed livestock now host Sunday picnics, art fairs, and kids tossing frisbees under oaks that have watched over centuries of laughter and change. Just beyond it, downtown tells its story in architecture. The Blount Bridger's house, built in 1808, still anchors Main Street like a genteel old uncle, while rows of Federal and Victorian homes flash gingerbread trim and porches made for sweet tea and storytelling. Each December, the candlelight tour of homes turns Tarboro into a living postcard. Lanterns glowing, carolers singing, and residents dressed in period clothes as the past takes one more graceful bow. And maybe the best part, you can actually afford the dream. Homes range between $140,000 and $180,000, and rent sits around $800 to $1,000. Life costs less when your hardest decision is which barbecue joint to visit, though locals will tell you the right answer is always Abrams. What truly sets Tarboro apart isn't preservation, but participation. From art fairs on the Common to quirky goat grazing events, everyone shows up. And if you linger by the river at night, someone might mention the Tarboro lights, ghostly orbs that drift across the water. No one knows what they are, but like the town itself, they never stop glowing. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you don't want to miss. Thanks for watching.